You just heard momentarily, a moment ago, from Sasha Gong. We're going to ask her to come up and introduce our next speaker, Robert Lee. Sasha is a member, again, I'm very pleased to say, of the Committee on the Present Danger of China. She spent quite a number of years after she extricated herself from China, where she was a political prisoner, educated here, and worked in various positions in the Voice of America until she encountered some of the difficulties that Robert is also going to be speaking about in terms of Chinese influence operations inside our own country and indeed our government. Sasha, welcome.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you. Before I'm going to, I will introduce my very dear colleague and good friend, Robert Lee, who actually stole the name of a great Virginian general. And I want to recognize my other very dear friend and colleague, Hu Chenzhang, who served as Guangcheng's interpreter before. Hu Chen actually is still working in Voice of America, but he got demoted. He's one of the greatest anchor and greatest journalists in the Chinese-speaking world. Yeah. And, well, it is a very well-known event that on April 19, 2017, I was leading a team to interview a whistleblower from China who want to expose corruption in China. He's a billionaire, high-ranking, operative in a way. And he had a lot of information. The Chinese government already targeted him in the Chinese media for 2 years. So I thought I would be giving him a chance to balance the news. No, the Chinese government, actually the Chinese embassy, the Chinese government, and involved in Interpol to intervene. Guess what happened? Voice of America, well, I worked in, they demanded to cancel the entire interview, to shut this guy up. And as the leader of that team, I said no. So in the middle of the interview, the top management came to someone, said, you have to pull the plug. It's a live show, doesn't matter, you pull the plug. That's the guy. He was in charge of the internet operation, but at that time they came to him and said, well, pull the plug. And he said, no, you have to give me a written order. They refused to give a written order because they did not want to leave any written order. So for that one reason, he got fired 3 weeks ago. I'm very sorry, Robert, but I think God intended you to play a much better role. Come here.
Okay. What an introduction. I'd like to show my thanks to Frank, to the Chairman Kennedy, and to a Committee on the Present Danger of China to remember Tiananmen massacre. We want the whole world to know that we'll never forget. Last Friday, Twitter suspended hundreds of accounts. These accounts had a couple of things in common. First of all, the users of the accounts are Chinese, living inside and outside of China. And they tweet using the Chinese language. Second of all, the accounts are all critical of the Chinese government and Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. As for the date of the suspension, last Friday was May 31st, 4 days before June 4th, 2019, the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Square massacre. Some have called these suspensions the Twitter massacre. I happen to manage one account which is within the suspended account That's not my personal account. I manage it on behalf of a group of people. And Twitter explained that they may have made some mistakes in their routine checkup. I just got a Twitter message 40 minutes ago, and there is an explanation. A little background. We have automated systems that find and remove spam accounts, and yours was flagged by our systems as spam by mistake. Reports regarding your account submitted by other users did not play a role in these actions. What a convenient excuse. Think about it. Twitter suspends the accounts of users using Chinese language and being critical of the Chinese government 4 days before the 30th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. The timing is impeccable. Can we really believe that this is simply a coincidence? I must be very naive. If this happened in China, where censorship is the norm, then nothing would be amiss. But this happened here, in the United States of America, the leader of the democratic and free world. That's not normal. That should not be normal. Since when has suppression of freedom of speech become normal here? This is what I want to stress today. We are being attacked from the inside. We're so vulnerable because the attacker is one of our own. And we are being backstabbed. These attackers could be big corporations like Twitter, or high-ranking government officials like the head of the Voice of America, VOA, and Board of Broadcasting Governors. Now it's called the U.S. Agency of Global Media, right? Okay, I'm not familiar with it. I'm still using BBG, who caved in to Chinese pressure and abruptly stopped an interview with Guo Wengui in 2017. That's the incident Sasha just mentioned just now in the introduction. These organizations are our own, and they have a direct impact on our freedom of speech. These incidents have shown that freedom is in imminent danger. Twitter denied that China had any involvement in this massive suspension, just like the Voice of America and BBG denied that Chinese pressure led to the suspension of Guo Wengui's interview. Who wouldn't deny that kind of accusation? But then, why are people, including me, highly suspicious of China's involvement? Because China uses carrot and stick to cast influence here. Thanks to big Western corporations, including most American corporations, the Chinese Communist Party now has enough money to influence many areas of the United States, more than you can imagine. On one occasion, the Chinese business opportunities made someone delivered a letter from Xi Jinping, the president of China, directly into the White House, the top of our administration, asking our president to deport a person the Chinese government wants, Guo Wengui, of course. If you look into any of the projects related to China of all the major think tanks and universities here in the States, you will see Chinese money backing them. China offers all kinds of incentives, business opportunities, donations, investment, access to vast resources for research, etc., etc. You name it. We know that power corrupts. We also know that money corrupts too. And with so much money at its disposal, China has developed a record of successfully influencing American decisions. Ordinary Chinese citizens could be thrown into jail for having a Twitter account. But all major state-owned Chinese media outlets have a huge presence on Twitter. CCTV has nearly 8 million followers on Twitter. Xinhua has 23 million followers, even more. People's Daily has nearly 5 million, and China Daily, that's an English newspaper by China, has nearly 2 million. These accounts are ultimately controlled by the propaganda development of the Chinese Communist Party, and they have clearly built a strong presence on an American social media platform. But I guess Twitter has never accidentally suspended those accounts. Hudson Institute, a conservative think tank, claimed that it was the only think tank that didn't take Chinese money. Good for it. Despite the fact that its China experts, fellows, and researchers visited China and cooperated with Chinese counterparts on research projects. In October 2017, Hudson Institute scheduled an event called A Conversation with Guo Wengui on October 4th, 2017, 5 months after VOA cut off its interview with Guo Wengui. One day before the event, they announced that the event was postponed and would be rescheduled. From my research, before the scheduled event, Hudson Institute's website was hacked, possibly by Chinese attackers. The institute got messages from China that the status of visas for its fellows and researchers could be endangered if the event was to go on as scheduled. I heard that at least one of the institute donors took a donation from a Chinese donor and passed that donation to the Hudson Institute. Bingo. That donor demanded the event be cancelled. Now, that carrot, in the form of a donation, turned into a stick. I wish this wasn't true, but the event has been postponed for over 18 months. Never rescheduled. That's really a long postponement. When they reschedule the event, if there is such a time ever, I'd like to receive an invitation again, just like I did in 2017. It is not that I'm so interested in the event, but I really hope they honor their words and prove there is really no Chinese money influencing the so-called postponement. By the way, the head of Hudson Institute also happens to be the head of BBG, the agency that was ultimately responsible for the cancellation of VOA's interview with Guo Wengui. Another convenient coincidence. Why do I keep coming back to these U.S. international broadcasting organizations, BBG and VOA? American taxpayers spend about $700 million annually to fund organizations such as BBG and VOA. And these organizations are supposed to promote American policies and exemplify principles of a free press and freedom of speech. Now, how has the Chinese carrot influenced the BBG's decisions? I can't be sure. But some vulnerabilities are worth paying attention to. In 2011, the Chinese edition of Steve Jobs' biography was published in China. It was published, I think, in the same year here, and became a bestseller immediately. The concern is the writer of this book was the BBG board chairman at the time. Since 1994, Hollywood has made billions of dollars from exporting movies to China. Now, Chinese money is funding some of the Hollywood's movies. This is the normal business, right? There's only one concern. During 2010 and 2012, the chairman and CEO of Sony Pictures Entertainment, which also owns the Columbia Pictures, was at the same time the interim presiding governor of BBG. Today, a top executive of VOA has a huge family business operation in China. At this very moment. Now, I'm not saying that these top executives have done anything wrong. However, when they face tough decisions about China, can they guarantee that the business benefits that they personally receive from China won't factor in? These are huge conflicts of interest, and we taxpayers can suffer because of them. I always say to evaluate people, you not only listen what they say, you pay more attention to what they do. Every 1 or 2 years, there is a survey of best places to work in federal government, an evaluation given by the federal employees for their own agencies. For years, out of 27 mid-sized federal agencies, BBG has always stayed in the lower quartile. Actually, for quite a few years, BBG was number 1 from the bottom. Out of 415 agency subcomponents, VOA, like its mother agency, has stayed in the lower quartile too, forever. The upper management of VOA rarely gives the director instructions to Mandarin service on what programs to do. Here are a few programs that the top executives of VOA instructed the Mandarin service to produce. The ivory smuggling in Africa. Talk to admissions officers of major U.S. colleges and universities. What major issues come to your mind when you think of China? Don't you think of the South China Sea, the Taiwan issue, cyber attacks, the trade war, human rights abuse, religious persecutions? Why would college admissions be more important than any of those issues when it comes to reporting on China? The top executives of VOA and BBG just don't get it. So, what is the solution? Yes, it's high time we fixed our own problems. So we need to clean our house. We need to eliminate the danger within before we can fight outside forces effectively. What can we do to prevent public platforms like Twitter from wrongdoing, such as the Twitter massacre? I don't have a well-thought solution. Maybe we need to have new laws or amend the old laws to regulate these platforms, so freedom of speech and freedom of press can really be practiced without being influenced by China's carrot and stick or anyone else. As for BBG and VOA, the U.S. international broadcasting agencies, we need a total overhaul. If necessary, eliminate them completely and build a new agency. In any case, change must start with a comprehensive overhaul of leadership, as Secretary of State Pompeo suggested to the Congress. We need to locate and hire the leaders with clear and sound international visions, knowledge of American interests and values, and the ability to advance those interests and values around the world with no personal or business interests with China and other current or potential adversaries. Without the complete overhaul of leadership, other structural change won't work. Simply put, we need a few good men and women too. God bless America. Thank you.
Quick question. Does anyone have a question for Robert Lee very quickly? Yes, sir, right here.
Yeah, I basically have two questions.
Just one question, sir.
Oh, okay. So I think we should have a congressional hearing on the Twitter. It's very important. Congress paid a lot of money for the Twitter's revenue.
I totally agree. I think we need to work on legislation to have rules set. So those corporations have to abide by our values of freedom of speech, freedom of press, human rights, and democracy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Robert, very much.